Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of a podcast where two guys talk about triathlon. It is called Talking Triathlon. Jimbo, welcome back. 2024, mate. You can tell I'm a bit rusty because I completely forgot what to say at the start of the podcast.
24 years after the millennium.
It's ridiculous, isn't
Unreal.
it?
It's ridiculous. Yeah, it's getting a bit much now, isn't it? I need it to ease off a bit, slow down. Give me a bit of breathing space on this progression through time thing.
It's my birthday in a week, and I
Is
think so.
it, you big old bastard?
Yeah, I know. But somebody's like, "Oh, you bet," and I was like, "I'm at the point where I'm actually happy not to celebrate them anymore. Like it's that, oh,
Yeah, I
another
found
one."
that once I got past sort of 35, I started forgetting what age I was.
Mm,
The birthday comes and you're like, oh, what age is it this year? It becomes less important, but
exactly.
more crucial.
Does,
It's
doesn't it?
strange.
I
Yeah.
think I have a more of an idea about how old I am by how I feel when I wake up in the morning. It's like what part of my body hurts at the moment, or things like that. But no, it's that wasn't a subtle plug where I'm like, give me. I don't, it would just yeah. It's that time of year. How was your break, mate? We are back. Yeah, we had a few weeks off. We
Yeah, it was
actually
good.
barely spoke, to be honest. It's funny how that happens. But yeah, how was your break?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. It was active, chaotic in places, relaxed in others, lots of movement, lots of traveling. But it was nice to tuck Christmas away, then see the new year in, and I was in France for the new year, which was nice. And now I'm back. And like you say, we whenever we have this break, we kind of switch each other off for 3 weeks. It's like I think I spoke to you a couple of days ago. We talked about some films or something.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
other than that, I've barely spoken to you. How was your break?
No, it's good, and it's not you. It's like I completely switch off triathlon. Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah, yeah.
honestly I could not like nothing. I don't want to know anything about it. I don't want to hear the word. I have so
I was
little
a bit like that
interest.
because we're coming into this podcast and I was like, Jesus, I haven't paid any attention to anything for 3.5 weeks. I don't know if anything's changed or anything's happened, but we'll
Don't
wing
worry,
it.
guys.
It'll be all
We've
right.
still got plenty to talk about. Don't tune out after you've heard that awesome proclamation from Jimbo. But it is. I think it's just that it's such a big part of my life that yeah, I get a few weeks off that I'm like, no, I need a bit of a breather from it. And you don't realize how absolutely knackered you are until you actually start to take the time off. I got sick at the start, and then it takes a week of like I'm just tired all the time. And then it was Festive 500, and it was shit weather, so I did half of it on the goddamn trainer, which I know isn't technical, but whatever. But I'm starting to come good now, which is nice. But yeah, I think as athletes need an off season, I definitely think all of us pesca age groupers definitely understand you need a bit of a break every year too. So good to be back. Plenty has been happening over the break. And I also want to give a shout out to all those people who signed up at patreon.com/talking triathlon to get those bonus Christmas episodes we did. Thank you. It's lovely to see so many new people in the Patreon group. It's where you guys can go to. We'll do a bonus monthly episode soon. And then back to regular monthly bonus shows plus the WhatsApp group, which is there, and the Facebook group, patreon.com forward
Yeah,
slash
it's good
talking
fun.
triathlon.
That WhatsApp group has been the only sort of little triathlon insight I had over the break because every now and again there'd be a message in there and it's quite good fun.
I think this is the year we've got one of the big things we like to do with that group is like live chat along to races, and there's going to be some
Yeah.
big races this year. And I thought that's what we'll probably do a bit
Yes.
is let's we did it on one of our bonus shows over Christmas, but we ended last year with a wrap of 2023 and some awards. I still think we did pretty well. Although I did realize we forgot to give the Lionel nomination to Lionel for the crossing the double white lines at 70.3 worlds, which I thought was an error on our part. Sorry about that,
He
Lionel.
got it. He got it. He got it now. Posthumously.
I think he can tie with Sam because I think Sam Kennett was pretty good, to be honest. I think that was pretty
Yeah.
deserving. But I think Lionel
Yeah,
definitely
yeah.
gets a tip of the hat or a special mention for that. But there has been plenty happening in the world of triathlon. Not all that much confirmed. Lots of still weird whispers and rumors, mostly around the PTO. Come on, Sam, tell us what's going on, mate. It's January now. Like we're talking about the first race being potentially March. This is
Yeah, man. Sam, we know you listen.
we do know
And
you listen.
we know as a reasonable person, as we all are, that you know how important this distribution of information to those that are going to be your audience is. So come on, let's get it out there. What's happening with the PTO so that we can start, amping up the excitement for this race series because that's all we want. So all the people want is a good solid race series to watch.
Well, I've heard what we saw. There's an article that came out this week where Daniel Beckergaard's confirmed. Uh, I believe that the top 16 ranked females have all accepted their contract. That's the last little rumor that I heard. So that means literally if you
How
go
much
to
is the contract worth, Mr. Ford?
about 100, 110,000 apparently. But I'm not
So
sure if
that's
that's
okay.
I don't know if that's for every athlete because I also heard that that was like top 10 and then the rest was mostly just travel and accommodation. Again, I don't know. I've not spoken to them about it. But I also believe that it's the full six races, but unless you're an Olympic athlete or an athlete who's also racing the Olympics, like a Taylor Knibb or a Christian Blumenfeld or a Hayden Wild, who I think might have a contract, they only have to do four races. So that's that again, I find that it's another example, I suppose, of that interest in like, what's the PTO about? Is it about triathlon in general? Is it about long course? Or is that sort of like that's sort of what they said when they announced, but now it is very much just we do what we need to do to make triathlon broadcastable, which I don't hate the concept of because it does sound like a fair few of the people they're giving contracts to or wild cards to, I suppose. Not at all, just athletes are those short course guys who won't be able to commit to the full series. Uh,
Which is
but
exciting in itself.
fuck yeah.
But is it the um what's the word I'm looking for?
I don't know. You tell me.
Where you look after something. Cultivation. Is it the cultivation of the long course, or is it the sort of cherry picking of from every distance to try and make an exciting product, which is not a bad thing in itself, you know.
I think it actually is the cultivation because I think that, as I've said for years on this show, that the short course guys are the future long course. So I think that
Agreed. Agreed.
yeah, this idea that they're two separate, like yes, they are when they race, but I still think that, I mean, yeah, if I had to pick the athletes that would get wild cards for the PTO series, I think they'd probably all be
Yeah, yeah, and
short
that's
course
that's the
athletes.
thing with this distance being as it is, the PTO distance being as it is, it's I think it's important to take the emphasis off long course athletes being long course athletes and short course athletes being short course athletes. And the future of triathlon is the best athletes racing the distances they're best at, whether it's short and then up to the medium, up to the half Ironman, maybe the PTO distance. I think
Yeah,
there will always be a slight group who are better at the full distance than everything, but we've already seen some that can cross from Super League all the way up to long course. So it's interesting.
it is.
Times ahead.
Yeah, so let's go through the 16 women who it looks like at this point will be doing the PTO series. We've got Anne Haug, Ash Jennell, Taylor Knibb, Lucy Charles Barclay, Laura Phillip, Kat Matthews, Paula Finlay, Daniela Reef, Imogen Simmons, Emma Pallant Brown, Chelsea Sodaro, Marjolaine Pierre, Sky Monch, Tamara Jewett, India Lee, and Sarah True. They are the top 16 ranked females at the moment. Looking at that list, are there any people that, because there's a few on that I'm surprised would go for the PTO series, uh, to be honest. But I also have heard that there's a few athletes on that list who are going to try to do the PTO series as well as the Ironman Pro series. And that's an interesting conversation too. But what do you think of those 16 athletes? Are there people there that you're surprised to see go for the PTO?
Yeah, I mean,
Sky Monch to
I'm
me,
also
for example,
yeah, I
surprises me.
was just you took the words out of my mouth. And she having followed that up with some are going to cross over between the both. I would assume that she would be that athlete who would cross over
I
between
think
the
I heard Kat
two.
Matthews as well. There's another one I got told is
Yeah,
going to try to do both.
because that for me, Sky is more of a long course athlete than the PTO difference. But it'd be really interesting to see how it happens. And it could be a sign that yes, if these contracts are 100 and something grand, then money talks, doesn't it?
I think that's kind of been my assumption. It's like, you're going to pay me to
Yeah,
show up? I'll show up. And
yeah,
it's also fascinating because we know we discussed it last year that the women's in particular, there's a race the week before or after, I can't remember off the top of my head, the Women's World Championships in Nice. That Ibiza race, I think, is like a week either side. So I'm not sure. It's unclear because we still don't know how many races the PTO series is, right? Does it mean that if you sign a contract, you're an Olympic athlete, do you have to do every race? Because that then means, or it makes me query or wonder, are we going to see athletes who just sort of show up is it just like I'll just take the pay? Like to me, Daniela Reef, I'm very surprised to see her accept this spot. And I assume it's just like, yeah, they'll pay me. Okay, I'll do it. Like I wouldn't have thought Laura Phillip probably would have, considered I don't think we've seen Laura Phillip do any PTO events. Uh, so I'm fascinated to see the actual approach because that's the other thing, you like it's a frustration I have a bit with triathlon, right? Where there's money, so everybody sort of flocks at it, but don't really buy into it. So if I think it'd be very disappointing to see the athletes who take these contracts not fully commit and not just show up, but actually really, create some incredible racing. and genuinely prioritize this over the Ironman Pro Series. I think athletes trying to do both. I don't think people will be able to. I think people who think they can will probably start, but that will fade out pretty quickly, I expect, when they actually realize that. Because, we're talking about World Championship fields racing consistently this year. You aren't going to be able just to, like, it ain't going to be like a normal triathlon year if you're trying to do that plus three Ironman races and two 70.3s. Like, that's six, nine, at least 11 races, three of them Ironmans
Yeah, I
in
mean, I
years.
think if you start seeing people doing both, that is the point where you start thinking that some of these people are going to be cherry picking where their effort goes based on, you know, trying to survive the year, but also get that pay packet that they've signed up for. I think if someone is going to choose either the PTO or the Ironman series, that's when you're going to see a real focus on delivering race in, race out. If you're going to try and do both, then I think there's going to be some cherry picking there.
Now, I've just said the top 16, but I'd like to get your opinion because there's four wildcards. Again, what we've heard. Again, Sam, you can yell at us on the if we're wrong. My understanding is that 16 contracts plus four wildcards to make the 20 field. We've got the 16 approximately with four additional wildcards. Who would you give the wildcards to? Who are the female professional triathletes that you would like to see? And to keep on theme with what we were talking about before, let's try to pick them from short course.
Okay, doke.
Who would you like to see? Because I've got a few names. I've got one in particular that I'd like to see them give a wild card to, but I'll let you go first.
I'd like to see Maya Kingma given a wild card.
I think she'd do
I
excellent at
think
that
I
distance.
think I think she'd do well. Um, who else? I've got to pick four, have I?
You don't have to. You can just give a few. Like it doesn't.
Yeah. Um,
Any other
um,
short course women you think would do quite well at that distance? Anyone that comes to mind?
yeah, hang on.
Sure, I can tell you mine if you like.
No, no, I think bear with me. I'm trying to get a uh
What are you thinking? I can probably help you out here.
no, no,
Sure.
no. You're good.
Okay.
You're good. I think I'd like to see Claire Michelle step up to this distance. I think she's a fantastic athlete. I
I
think
think so too.
be a good time for her to do that. I think Taylor Spivey would be an excellent choice for a wild card. Who else? Give me one more. I'll give you one more.
No Brits? There's no British athletes you think could do quite well? Because there's a few Brits I think could do quite well at this distance.
Yeah, I mean there probably are. I mean we're a powerhouse.
It's true,
But
especially
go
in
on,
women's triathlon.
I've done. Go on. You carry on. You do some.
Gwen Jorgensen. Gwen Jorgensen, who is
Yeah.
I would 100% love to see them give a wild card to, because we know that Gwen's sort of been trying to get to the Olympics. I still, at this point, don't think she's probably going to qualify for the American team, but I think that she could do she could do very well if she sort of. I mean, I just want to see Gwen Jorgensen do middle long distance racing, but I think that an alternative to racing the Olympics this year could be for Gwen to go and do this PTO series. I think that could be very, very exciting. I know that she's signed with Canyon, so she should have no problem getting access to good TT equipment and things like that. But she's top of my list for a PTO wildcard. I'd love to see that happen. The other one that came to mind for me would be probably Georgia Taylor Brown. Just because, again, I'm not 100% sure what we're going to see Georgia do this year. She had that injury at the back end of last year. Her Olympic spot isn't as secured as I think anybody expect. I think that there's those three women. You've got Kate Woff, Sophie Colwell, Georgia Taylor Brown, who are all competing for those two spots on the British team. One of them is going to miss out. I wouldn't probably give Kate the spot because I think, Kate's so young. What's Kate, 24 years old, that she can probably really continue to focus on that short course. Whereas, this is probably George's last Olympic cycle. It might not be. But even Sophie, who isn't old by any stretch, I think is just such a strength-based athlete, could see her do quite well. So I would like to see, well, I think that Georgia or Sophie could be a good shout for a wild card. I think Maya's a great, great call. Very good sort of strength-based athlete too. Very good, swim biker. And the run when she has it on is very, very good. But no, to me, number one wild card that I'd love to see the PT give out to a female pro triathlete would be Gwen. I think that would be
Yeah, that's a good
sensational.
shout. That's a good shout. For some reason, I hadn't thought of her. I don't know why.
Katie
I think it's because
Zafiris?
her focus is so much on the Olympics at the moment that I can't see even if she was offered it, she'd say yes. Yeah,
Yeah, I know
Katie
what you mean.
Severos. I mean, I'd love to see Katie go for the long course, and I think she will at some point. But again, I think even if she was offered, I don't think she'd say yes this year.
I think so too. I mean, like I said, if there's this idea that you don't, if you're doing the Olympics, you only have to do 4 races. So post Olympics, I think that could be the sweetener that actually gets, like, if you go to an athlete like Gwen or Katie, both of whom I think are on the knife's edge, probably not going. I'm not sure if either of them will go to the Olympics. To be honest, I don't know. Uh,
No.
at this point, I'd probably say Taylor Knibb, Taylor Spivey, and Summer Rappaport. But I think if you said to them, there's the option of if you qualify the Olympics, you just do the 4 races. If you don't qualify for the Olympics, you can do the full series. You get paid $100,000. I could see them saying yes to that. So they're another two athletes. But I mean, like looking at the rest of the women's foot outside the top 16, I can't really see anybody that I think would make a huge impact on I mean, Lucy Byram, who did so well in Milwaukee, who's just signed with the BMC Pro team. I'd like to, see again, very young athlete. And I actually think a commitment from the PTO should be to try to have at least one younger athlete there to develop. So Lucy Byram, I think, could be great. But other than that, I can't really see, so many of these names that like Nelly Salthouse from a few years ago, Fenella, they're Holly Lawrence. I just don't really see them
Yeah, I
actually
mean,
being making
I
an
think
impact.
from a PR perspective and from a creating conversation, creating noise perspective, if I was the PTO, what are you doing to that coffee?
Drinking it, mate.
All right. I would be, look,
It's
it was
because
a strange.
when you drink it and you try to drink your coffee cup and it doesn't come out properly, so the air hole often gets full
Right,
of foam.
you
So
were
you got to
unblocking there.
unblock in the air hole. Yeah,
Nice. Okay. So, if I was the PTO from their perspective, as a PR machine, then I would be taking my 16 who'd taken their slots, and then I would be looking for wild cards outside of that ranking structure.
same.
Rather than looking further down, I'd be looking at short course athletes and people that are going to pick up a bit of noise and a bit of interest when when that information comes out.
Agree. I 100% agree. So that's when
So
the
I'll
Met.
expect my wild card invitation in the post.
Mate, I would 100% be put into, like, again, it's about storytelling, James. So they need the everyman in
It
there
is.
to be able to, they need you in the field to show just how good the
Yeah.
others are by
Rocking
comparison.
up, looking like a darts player.
I love the thought. Then it's like your requirement is you have to drink beer in transition or something, or, you're on they give you like, you're allowed to use an e-bike or something.
Just like that.
But
What's
again,
like the guy on the gurney bike at the
well,
start of
no, what is
the
it? The Kieran guy.
yeah, Kieran, yeah. Just
That'd be amazing, actually. I think you'd probably become the most popular cyclist in the field because so many of the guys that sit on your ass, mate. They'd be like, "Oh, I'll wait for James to come out on his Kieran bike. We'll just sit behind him. He can tow us around the 80-kilometer bike course." Although that sort of
20 minute
happens.
20 minute wait at T1.
They all swim around you in a big circle, like that. You basically get an escort around the swim course just so you get out with all of them.
I
Um,
had a chat with Joe the other day about his $1 million bonus.
yeah, well,
And
yeah.
I was like, mate, just distribute. Just say to everybody, 5K each. Sit on
Nah,
my
that's
heels, let me out the
there's
swim first.
safeguards in the contract that prevent that, unfortunately. But
Ah,
um,
there you go.
more to come on that later. But let's talk about the men's race now. So again, rumors are the top 16 and females have all accepted their contract. I don't know if that's true. With the 4 wildcards, I've heard nothing about the wildcards. But the men's race, there's more I've heard. Again, I don't know. I've not heard something like the top 16 have accepted. I have heard that Lionel Sanders hasn't accepted. I've heard that Sam Laidlow hasn't accepted. That's sort of I've heard Daniel Beckergaard has accepted. So then looking at the list, there's a lot of names on this. So, like, let's look at the top 16. Christian Blumenfeld, Magnus Ditlev, Jason West. I've heard Magnus has accepted. Jan Frodeno, not even there anymore. Peter Heimrich, Margirier, I can never pronounce his name properly. Rudy von Berg, Leon Chevalier, Sam Long, Patrick Langer, Daniel Beckergaard, Bradley Weiss, Sam Laidlow, Frederick Funk, Clement Mignon, Aaron Royal. So straight, and like, I mean, Dave McNamee 17 automatically because Frodeno's out. What's going on?
Yeah,
All good.
nothing.
Um, are
Yeah.
there, I mean, like, there's obviously names on there that I expect to sign up. Who are the ones you probably wouldn't see or expect to see sign up for the series?
Well, I mean, Lionel Sanders
Not even in the top
surprises
16,
me.
actually.
Hey?
He's not even in the top 16, actually. So he must have been offered a wild card.
Yeah, let me just get the PTO
He's
rankings.
32 at the moment. He's 32. Ali's 31. I'm guessing that's probably that wild card thing, right? They're looking for the athletes to give them some, exposure. But yeah, apparently Lionel turned it down.
Yeah, which is
Um,
surprising if I'm honest, because he's such a good 70.3 athlete.
that's where he
You
should
know,
be doing. Like, Yeah.
He's had
We-
some amazing races, and I assume that that would translate up to the PTO distance quite nicely if he really put some focus into it and stopped flogging the dead horse that is Ironman for him. Um, I mean, do you think an athlete like Christian Blumenfeld would take, because
He's
he
taken
would
it.
take the PTO contract? He's taken it, is
100%.
he?
If it's I don't know, but
Yeah.
I'm again, it's Christian, all right? There's money on the line, which I love. Like fucking chase the money, KB. But if you're Olympics, you only have to do 4 races. Like, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That element, I keep forgetting that element and assuming it's more difficult for the short course athletes to make that decision.
The um
Um,
the obvious wild card for me here is Gustav Eden. I think you give Gustav Eden the wild card like just as quickly as possible, and I assume he probably will be given one.
yeah.
He ain't going to the Olympics this year. That shit ain't happening. He's not going to the Olympics. So we'll
No. And
get him in for this
you
series.
could what about you want to
Martin Van Riel. That's another guy I'd give a
yeah,
wild card to.
and you want a Brownlee in there, don't you?
I'm sure he's going to get. I wouldn't give him one.
From a
But he,
PR perspective,
yeah, you get
they
yeah.
yeah.
Although there's no races in the UK, and does
What
his
about, but I
fame
mean, I'm
translate
not,
out?
yeah, and I'm not talking strictly Alistair. You've got a Johnny as
No,
well who could
yeah,
take a wild card.
Johnny's going to the Olympics. Johnny's going to get that second slot, I think, for the Team GB.
Yeah,
Uh,
okay.
and again, I just don't think he seems to like middle distance, or like we've seen him do a few, and they've never been exceptional.
He's never excelled, is he? So yeah, you're probably going to give Alistair Brownlee a wild card, and then you're going to watch him never do any races because he's always has a niggle or an injury or an operation or something.
I
But
know.
you know,
Um,
that's just the way it seems to be. Will on the men's side, the emphasis for me is less drawing from the short course because you've got quite a few short course athletes in that top 16
yeah,
anyway. So it's not quite. I mean, there's like you say, Gustav Eden is there. Alistair Brownlee would be there. Who else would I be looking to give a wild card to?
Vincent Louis.
Yeah, Vince. I was actually going to say Vince, or Tyler. Get Tyler out there.
Tyler's
Get him
going
a
long.
wild card.
Tyler's going long after the Olympics. So I mean, yeah, like I said, I think there should be some focus on that development of athlete of talent through. I mean, to me, I'd probably go Gustav, Martin, Vince.
Yeah,
I don't want Alistair, but
Alistair.
it's probably his Alistair. Yeah.
It's a neither do I, but it's one of those things, isn't it? Where we know it's going to be that.
But again, there's going to be more
Yeah,
wild cards, don't forget, because like I said, Sam Laidlaw apparently hasn't taken his contract. I'd be very surprised if Patrick Lang takes the contract just because of how like again, I don't think Patrick has done any of the PTO events. He's very much about that Ironman race. I mean, if they throw him the money, mate, if they offer you, take it. I'm just saying, based on like them, all I'm basing this on is them as athletes, right? Not as necessarily people. Patrick Lang is one that I'd be interested to see. Like I said, Jan Frodeno is not going to be there, so he's not
so
going to.
one, two, three so far that we don't. I mean, we know that Sam Laidlaw hasn't taken it. We know Jan Frodeno is not going to be there, and we would assume that Patrick Lang's not going to take it. So that's three
Yeah.
on top of four. So we got seven wild cards to
Are
play
they
with.
wild cards or what? Because we asked Sam this
Or does it
months ago.
roll? Does it roll?
Yeah, does it roll or does it all? Do they just also become wild cards? If the top 16 don't
Mm.
accept this, I would assume wild cards, right? You would assume wild cards because it gives the PTO more freedom to have the athletes they want rather than having to adhere to this. Because again, like if I look at it, like we said before, so Dave McNamee 17, yeah, I'd add Dave. Yuri Kulin, I don't think he's going to make a big contribution to the series, so probably not. And then the next guy, Coolhouse, I've never even heard of. Um, so I mean, there's a until you get down to like 22, 23, 24, there's not really
And then
probably anybody that
then you
I'd.
start to see some names, don't you? Like Ben Canute, who slipped out of the top
Rico
16.
Borgen, maybe you give him a wild card. 70.3 world champion. He's young.
Yeah.
He's maybe somebody who's deserving of a wild card, actually.
There's that guy called Joe Skipper. You want to give him a wild card
No,
as well?
no, don't even offer it to Joe Skipper at the moment. Thanks. I'm very happy for Joe to be focusing on that Ironman Pro Series, which is going to be very good for
Yeah.
Joe. Uh, but yeah, look, I'm very interested. Come on, PTO, let's get this show going because I think, and again, look, I'm aware that we sometimes have been a bit critical, but and I love this thing, but I do get a bit concerned that yet again we're talking about a race series that starts in 2 months and we still don't know
Give
the
us something to
details.
support, for fuck's sake.
But not
You
even
don't
that.
go into any sports season not knowing what you're going to be looking forward to.
I think what we're seeing again though is this works for triathlon. Triathlon fans like ourselves have been following this. We've been able to talk about this for 20 minutes because we follow it. But the whole point of the PTO series is about broadcasting or making this appeal to non-triathletes, to people who
Mm.
don't current. You're not giving them enough time. Like that's why I think that it almost feels like, okay, this season's already going to be a bit of a write-off because it's January and we still haven't announced the things. Like, and I get it, right? Triathlon is that safe space. They've got the age group race happening and things like that. It's probably very easy to go, "Oh, this year's just a tester." Fuck that. Let's get it out there. Let's actually start to do the work we've been talking about. We've been treading water for years. I want to
Mm.
start seeing that interest, that those eyeballs on the sport, because the sport seems to be in a pretty grim state at the moment in terms of the commercial side of things. But yeah, PTO
Yeah,
series.
there was kind of a peak, wasn't there? And then
Mm.
it's just gone into this stagnation period, and nobody's willing to take a risk or back themselves at the moment, and it's
Well,
hard times, but things might start to improve.
well, let's then talk from. So we've previewed the PTO series a little bit. The next thing we can talk about is the Ironman Pro series, because unlike the PTO series, there's no need for athletes to sign a contract or announce that they're going to do it, or one or the other. It's a non-exclusive. Anybody can participate, sort of more traditional model. As I said, I know Joe's going to do it. It sounds like Lionel's going to do it. I'd assume Patrick Lane's going to do it. Matt Hanson's probably going to do it. From
Yeah,
the women, I have actually no idea.
Ditlev will do it, won't he?
Do you I would, again, he's an athlete that I expect we would see try to do both. The interesting thing with the Ironman Pro Series is if you genuinely want to do it, you have to do 3 Ironmans though. So 2 Ironmans plus Kona. Ditlev's going to
Mm.
go do Roth again, right? Like Roth's going to throw a bucket of money at him to do Roth. That's already one. Do you see him doing 2 other Ironmans, Roth and Hawaii, plus the PTO series, plus 270.3s? I don't.
Again, it comes down to emphasis, doesn't it? And all out effort or just attending some races.
Mm, that's what I mean. I hope we don't see it. But yeah, look, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw, like I said, I think Ironman Texas is going to be a very interesting race to watch because you're going to see, I think anybody who's going to have a crack at the Ironman Pro Series is going to line up at Texas. And I think Texas is actually going to be an absolutely fantastic event this year. Like, I think we're going to see an all-star field there. Uh, but again, talking with Joe, he was saying to me that it sounds like a lot of the athletes are actually, like a lot of athletes are kind of a bit scared off by the Pro Series. So there's a heap of people who are looking to do South Africa, which I think is the week after instead, because like, the Texas field's going to be too strong for me. And I go, "No, that's not you're missing the point of this. Don't don't run away from it. Get into it.
Yeah,
Like embrace it. Be
yeah,
part
yeah.
of it. Like we don't. That again. I get.
Yeah, it's a strange one, isn't it? Because it comes down to very short term thinking.
Mm,
Yeah, you might turn up to a race and you might not do as well at that race as you think you want to do to earn enough money in that moment. But if we have a sport that's got all the best people racing as much as possible, that whole sport gets bigger, and that slice of the pie gets bigger, and the way that pie trails down through the finish list gets deeper, and then you can go to these races, you can do as well as you think you might do, and you'll get as big a slice of the pie as you would have done if you'd gone to Ironman South Molton and won it against me,
on your Kieran
you know,
bike.
on my Kieran bike. Yeah.
Like I said, I can name. There's probably a handful of athletes that I can name that I think we will see commit to the. I mean, I know Joe's going to. I know for a fact Joe's going to. I would expect Lang to do it. I know Lionel's going to do it. Sam Long is another one that I would probably expect. But again, I don't know. Sam's not great at Ironman, so the PTO series probably makes more sense, but Sam will still probably have a crack. When I talk about the women, though, the women is where it's fascinating because I can't obviously see the women that are going to go after the Pro Series because there's nobody I can see, no women I can see who are saying, I'm not going to do the PTO series. I'm going to focus on the Ironman series. There doesn't seem to be any women because I would have expected
No.
Daniela Reef to do
Yeah.
that.
And
Uh,
and Sky, I thought Sky would be
Sky.
like, I mean, conversations I've had with some people have given me the impression that's what they were going to do, and it turns out they're not going to do that.
Well, I mean, we don't know.
It's
It's all whispers.
no,
Nobody's confirmed anything. But
but yeah, so it's an interesting one, and like you say, it's much harder to pick athletes based on what we know now, knowing that, well, assuming whispers that all 16 top females have taken their spot gives me the impression that it's like, well, fuck me, who's going to be focused on just the Ironman series then? Or is it
mm,
going to be something where you're going to be much further down those PTO rankings till you find athletes that are 100% like which isn't a bad thing, which could create a really interesting Ironman professional race series, which is highly competitive and brings new names to the front of that sport. I mean, does it matter if the racing is good? Does it matter if those names who are winning those races aren't in the top 16 PTO rankings? Maybe for recognizability of names, but ultimately, if you've got good racing, I say no.
I agree. No, like I've been quite vocal about this, like more specifically in relation to Super League. I think that if the main thing is if the racing's good, because like when you were talking, I was thinking about this because we got like let's say a Cat Matthews, an Annie Haug, a Daniel Arif. These athletes were going to try to do both series. If one of them have a contract, you have to do them. We know you're going to always, if you're starting to struggle on one, you know you're going to have to give this one up. So I think you're right. We could see that like, if I was an athlete outside that top 20, like I think that it's a huge opportunity because I've been saying this. I keep saying I have believed that there's the biggest opportunity in women's triathlon at the moment is in long distance racing because that middle distance field is so stacked. It is so deep. There are 10 or 15 athletes on any 70.3 championship field that I think could podium. Like it's unbelievable. I don't see that with Ironman. And that's why I think that if there's more women who are willing to like athletes that I'd like to see the Ruth Astle. If Ruth Astle's injury free, I'd love to see Ruth Astle focus on the pro series. Amelia Watkinson, just outside the top 16. I think I've thought this for a long time. Amelia could do so well at Ironman distance with the, that power she has. Great opportunity. I would have expected Daniela Reeve to do it. Laura Phillip, I think, is one I'm very, very curious to see what Laura Phillip does because the pro Ironman Pro Series seems so much more in her wheelhouse than the PTO series does. But yeah, yeah, it's fascinating, mate, isn't it? Like it really is.
Yeah.
Sarah Crowley, another one I think we'll probably see do the pro. I don't think she'd do well at the Ironman Pro Series. I like Sarah, but I think that she's probably on the decline in her career. But yeah, the women's pro series is really I have no idea at the moment. So that's why I'm also curious to see what happens in Texas with the women's field. Because again, I think the same thing. We'll see a lot of the names there. Whether they'll do it, I don't know. Holly Lawrence. Holly Lawrence could do what the pro series
Yeah.
actually.
Ellie Salthouse, maybe.
I'd love to see Ellie Salthouse do long distance
Yeah, yeah.
racing.
And
Yeah.
it would be really cool, and it'd be so good for heading into this year, knowing we've got these key Ironman races that are going to be broadcast, and we can hang our enthusiasm and our support around those races. Because most of the time, for the last years gone by, I've always just been, oh, there's an Ironman race this weekend. Is it being broadcast? No, on the tracker again. We've got these key races which we know are going to be televised, and we can watch them, and it'll be damn good to
Just
just know that.
do you like the fact that the races allow athletes to go between the two, or would you rather see you have to commit to one or the other? Like what approach would you prefer?
No, I think for the health of both of them, it's important that they give athletes the opportunity at the moment to go between the two, because both of the there's probably slight nerves on both in both parties that if they said, "Oh no, you've got it. If you sign up for us, you're only going to get us," it could all go to shit. That could mean that you don't get anybody.
I think originally the plan was the PTO were going to do it, yeah, like it was going to be exclusive, and I think Ironman announcing that it's not. It probably
Exactly, and that's created those nerves.
I'd like to see it be one or the other, to be honest. I actually really would like because again, I think that I'm concerned. One of the concerns I have this year, which we've seen in previous years, is a higher injury rate because athletes trying to do too much. I think that if you're getting paid good money to do the PTO series, commit to the PTO series, make the PTO series as good as it can be, just do the PTO series. Like I would like to see that. And then I think if you're not doing the PTO series, then you can all do the IMS. I mean, you can't do the PTO series if you don't have a contract, right? So I actually personally would like to see it be one or the other because again, it gives you some certainty too. I would like to know who the players are in the Ironman Pro Series. I would like to know who the players are in the
Don't
PTO.
get me wrong. Don't
No.
misunderstand what I said. I personally would love to see a world where we've got a guaranteed one or the other
Hmm.
amazing fields. You've got an Ironman Pro Series to support and a PTO Series support. There's no real cross contamination. You know who you're supporting. You know who the players are going to be. That's what I'd like. For the health of this thing kicking off, though, I can't see that being how they would frame it
I get that. No,
right now. I
yeah, I
think it
understand.
will get there.
So yeah, selfishly, most of the stuff I say, no, I agree with you. Then I think I really want to see them just go nah, one or the other.
Yeah.
We'll see, and I think I believe we'll probably end up there as the year goes on, and athletes do start to realize it's a big load, or maybe what they thought they could do they can't. I feel like we'll probably see towards the back end of the season the longer the PTO athletes just do the PTO races. I think it'll be different at the start. I think we will see people at the start try to do a bit of both, and I think that'll end pretty quickly, to be honest. That's just my gut feeling. I think that there's too many variables, too much on the plate, too many big races. They're human, right? We saw Christian try to do it all last year, and he had probably the worst year we've seen in recent times for him. There's a lesson to be learned from there. So,
It's also quite, you know, comforting to see that,
mm.
to see that these are humans, these are athletes. If they push too hard, then it doesn't go. It's comforting
I
for many
guess,
reasons.
I mean, the other thing we've not even spoken about is the current Ironman World Champion who we've heard, or I've heard, hasn't accepted the PTO contract. Sam Lalo doing the Ironman Pro Series interests me too, because I think that if we see Sam do what he did in Nice, I've said it before, nobody will ever, if he's that dominant, he's unbeatable. So it's a foregone conclusion. The thing I'd say with Sam though is he's extremely hit or miss, and which I kind of love about him, right? I love that it's. I would rather see athletes just take big swings, and if they have to walk home, okay, till next time. Which I wonder will like does that lend itself to the series, or is it just I'm all in on Kona this year? Like I expect he's probably all in on Kona, and if he can do well at the Pro Series, great. But I think he's just about Kona. Uh,
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think he will use the Pro Series to refine his approach to Kona,
and
which
then
kind of seems to be how he operates because he's like you say, he's all in. It's like every race is a testing field for him,
yeah.
and and then he goes and does what he did in Nice.
I mean, let's just touch on Kona. I don't. We're in January. It's not till October, but I expect we're going to see Gustav and Christian back in Kona this year. I think we're probably going to see some athletes in Kona that we've never seen there before. Uh, Again, it'll be an interesting race this year in Kona. I think I'm going to be there. I'm looking.
Yeah, it'll be exciting to see the return of the men's field to Kona, but also with the women racing in Nice.
Mm,
I think it'll be the beauty, I think, of going away for a year and coming back is that you get this result like Sam Laidlow winning, and then the question becomes, can he do that in Kona?
mm,
Can his body work like it did there in Kona? And are there other things that the other athletes can do in a race like Kona to mitigate the advantage he had in Nice? And that's a very interesting talking points, which we'll see that narrative play out as the season goes on, but then we'll also start talking about it around Kona. Um, you're going to be there, so that's exciting for you.
mm.
Um, I won't be. I think I'll probably go down to Nice, check out the women's race while that's there.
The only thing on the Nice thing, and like, I know we're still sort of talking about the PTO Ironman thing, but there was we know that Ibiza race is, I think it's the week after Nice. And we said last year that if that's the case for the women, they need to do something comparable for the men. They can't, like, again, if you're talking true equity, you need to make sure that there's both men and women get the same disadvantage advantage. From what I heard, that there's a California PTO race which will be 2 weeks before Kona, and I was thinking that's not a disadvantage. That's actually fantastic. I would say that a PTO event, world class field, short course, or middle distance, 2 weeks out from Kona in California, which is an easy. That's like ideal prep. So
Yeah, perfect
I,
springboard.
exactly. So I don't think that's put it the week after Kona. So we have
Yeah,
the women who have to line up after Nice and then do another race. Do the same for the men. Put that California race the week after Kona and just let them try to race hard on extremely sore, tired legs. That will definitely change the dynamic of the race in Kona this year. Uh, there is one other race that happens this year, though, that we haven't touched on at all. And it's kind of a big deal, mate. It's in a big deal in so much as it only happens every 4 years. And that is, of course, the Olympic Games. We have the Olympics
yes.
happening in Paris. Now, I can't,
What
it's
a
July.
pretty Olympic Games it's going to be.
Yeah, I'm firstly, you talked about 24 years since the millennium. The fact that it's another Olympic year, even taking into account it was a 3 year cycle, like it's ridiculous to me that it's 3 years since Tokyo.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like that long ago. I mean, I can remember lying in bed in 2000. I stayed up all night to watch the Olympic triathlon, to watch the first triathlon, the sport that I did at school. to watch that first triathlon in the Olympic Games, and it's 24 years later, and time has flown by. But time's flown by even quicker since the last Olympics I sat and watched. Even like you say, it was a tinier cycle. It does feel like it's been the blink of an eye, and we're here.
Yeah, I know. So we still don't know. We're still not in the best position of, again, similar, I guess, to PTO, about knowing who's doing what or who's racing or who's qualified. We know a few people, but like, how are your excitement levels for this race? Knowing the players, compared to, I think Tokyo was a very high anticipation race for me. I looked at that field and genuinely thought, like, I thought I knew who was going to do well, and I was wrong. Here we are 3 years later, and I think I have a very clear idea who I expect to win. The men's, at least, I think is extremely clear to me. The women's, I'm not so sure about. But what are your expectations, anticipation levels, those sort of things?
Less excited, I think, than I was for Tokyo. I think on the men's side, I think it's almost a foregone conclusion for me.
Same.
On the women's race is going to be much more interesting and much more open, with a deeper field of possibilities. I think on the men's side, it's quite top loaded, and I think for me, there's probably one person I can see taking that gold medal, and it's probably very similar to yours.
There's 1.5 people I can see getting that gold medal, to be honest. I think
Yeah,
one and
yeah,
one and a half.
yeah,
There's one guy who could, if there's two people I think are the obvious favorites. There's a third who is a fuck knows. Like, honestly, it could be first by a minute, or it could be 50th. I don't know. And that's Christian to me. Christian is
yeah.
this suddenly
That's Christian.
The Olympic champion.
Hayden and Yee are up there as your one and
One or
two.
two.
Hayden, you've got Christian who,
Could
like you
do
say,
anything.
he's just anything. Hayden is the guy that could.
Mm.
Yee is the guy that
It
will.
will. 100. I
Yeah.
couldn't agree with you more. I think that I still cannot get over that performance in Paris last year, and I can't see the race going
No.
much differently. It'll be a weaker field, which means there's going to be a breakaway, and then he's just going to drop that run. And it's not like to say that people are going to close the gap to him, right? It's not like Alex is staying still either. Alex is going to be preparing as hard as possible for this race as well. So I think everybody's going to move, and Alex is just ahead of everyone. Injury is a risk. We know a lot of athletes do get injured in the lead up to the Olympics. I hope the big players don't. Uh, but yeah, to me, Alex is winning a gold medal. I think Alex is going to win 2 gold medals, actually, because I think Britain's going to win the mixed team relay as well. So I think
Wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I think that's why I think the women's race is going to be so much more interesting
100%.
for that gold medal. And
What do you see happening in the women's race?
it's a tricky one.
Yeah,
It really
that's why I
is.
want to ask.
Yeah, yeah. And that's what we're here to do. It depends who's picked. It's very difficult at the moment because we haven't got that clear
I know.
roadmap as to who's got their places and who hasn't. Um, I've got a weird feeling about Taylor Spivey.
Interesting. I don't. I like Taylor a
Do you
lot.
not?
I don't. I could see her medal. I don't see her winning the gold. Like, actually, in no universe do I see Taylor Spivey winning a gold medal, which is a. I don't want to sound overly harsh. I'm not that. I just don't see. I don't see the race unfolding in a way that suits Taylor Spivey. Like, she's a very well-rounded athlete, but she doesn't have that. I mean, it's a wet run, right? Like, let's be honest. It's a swim, blow dry run in Paris. And I think that I mean, the obvious one is Beth Potter, but I also don't see Beth Potter probably winning the gold. I would see Beth getting a medal, but I don't think Beth's going to win the gold medal either. I think, yeah, again, it's tough, is it? Flora Duffy, mate. Like, where's Flora Duffy? Where the fuck is Flora Duffy?
Yeah. Where
Nobody's
is Flora
seen or
Duffy?
heard.
Is Gwen Jorgensen going to get a place? Is Taylor Knibb going to be there? Yes, of course she is. But is she going to be there on form?
I think Taylor Knibb could win a gold medal.
Yeah, I think she could. I've just got to hear me now, quote me later. I've got a weird feeling about Taylor Spivey.
I love, mate. Fucking, I hope you're right. I mean, there's Georgia Taylor Brown, if she's there, I think could be very dangerous. Kate Woff, I have again, not trying to be biased, but like, legitimately, I think that you look at the progression she's had, could very well be a medal. I think a medal contender. Then there's the outside. Like I said, there's those random sort of like, what do we like? Yeah, I don't know. We could get a shock. I don't know. It depends on how the race unfolds. But the women's race, I genuinely don't have any idea. I mean, if Gwen qualified and does manage to get into that bike pack, I could see her. Just imagine, like, let's actually just like hypothesize a situation where Gwen Jorgensen does qualify for the American
Yeah,
team and gets the gold
because it
medal
could,
again.
like you say, she qualifies, she finds us, she comes out of the water, gets into that bike pack. The bike isn't the decisive element in that race,
No.
and then she uses her run to run off the front. It would be really unique and interesting to see that happen because in that sort of race where Gwen's in the mix in that bike pack, Beth's going to be in there as well. Both hellish good runners racing for that gold medal. Exciting.
Oh, man. And I'm sure there's plenty of other athletes that we sort of left out. Mixed team
And
relay. Yeah.
I'd be pulling for Gwen in that situation. I got to tell you, there's
Interesting.
that sort of I like that story.
If Taylor Knibb wins the gold, then goes to Nice and wins Nice, and then wins the 70.3 worlds as well, which is actually a situation that I could very much see happening this year. Is that the greatest season in the history of triathlon?
Oof, yeah, mate. Yeah, maybe.
Come on.
Like, who knows? Can't pin me down to the greatest season in the history of triathlon. Um, it would instantly be in that conversation.
Mm.
But then that's the beauty of that conversation. It's a conversation. It's there's no one ever can definitively say that is the greatest season in the history of triathlon. There are variables, there are metrics, there are stories, and it's difficult to place it. But it would be a legitimate argument that someone could stand and make.
I think Taylor Knibb's, this is the end of her short course career. I think we're going to see her do this Olympics. And I think from next year on, or post Olympics, I think she's all in on middle and long distance racing. And genuinely, like, I'm not saying it will happen, but I could see her winning the gold medal, winning Nice, winning the PTO series, and winning 70.3 worlds. I said before that I don't think she'll win the Ironman Pro series. I don't think that's possible. But I could see her doing maybe not the PTO series overall. She'll win a PTO race at least, but I think she could win the two world championships and a gold medal in the same year. That would
Yeah,
be
yeah.
fucking mind blowing.
I wouldn't put it past. I wouldn't put it past.
The last thing
So
to, yep,
no, no, you go ahead. I was gonna mention a bit of Malibu, but you carry on with what you want to say.
that's where I was going to go next. The next thing to talk about is the Super League Championship Series for 2024, and a good place to start is around Malibu. So this race, I know that people will remember the fish. The fishies created a problem for the Malibu Triathlon last year. So how legal do you want me to get with this? Because I guess there's a little legal wrangling that's happened in this situation, or
Yeah, I'm interested. I think our listenership will be interested in a little bit of cutting surgical insight as well. So yeah, go on.
well, I don't have all the facts, but my understanding of what I know.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Have all the facts.
Okay, Your Honor, I'd like to present Super League, the organization, bought the Malibu Triathlon, I think 4 years ago, from the person who'd done the race for like 30 years. He was the event organizer, everything. So Super League, while they do the Super League race at Malibu, the Malibu Triathlon is still the Malibu Triathlon owned by Super League. Uh, Recently, or at the end of last year, early this year, the Malibu Council have revoked the Malibu Triathlon's license or permit to host the Malibu Triathlon and granted the license to hold the triathlon because the Malibu Council is really funny about how many events they put on. They want to actually have less events in Malibu because they're like, the celebrity rich area and they don't like, like typical nice area. They don't like people coming from like, how dare you come to our place? So Malibu Council revoked or didn't renew Malibu Triathlon's permit and granted the permit to put on a triathlon at Malibu Beach to the person who sold the Malibu Triathlon to Super League.
Yeah.
Now, surely, surely, when they purchased the race, there's a non-compete. There's a non-compete clause, which basically says you are not able to put on a race in Malibu that is a triathlon, that is a comparable distance or setup or location to the Malibu Triathlon, which we
Yeah, it's a
surely.
really strange thing, isn't it? Because there must have been lawyers involved in this
I
purchase.
think there's still lawyers involved too. Yeah.
And you would think if you're buying the triathlon series from the person who owns it, the triathlon race, you've bought that race,
The
and then
IP, yeah.
you're the IP and everything. You can't then have that person turn around and go, "I'm putting on the Malibu Triathlon next year."
But it's spelt differently. There's no H. It's triathlon, TRA.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right, yeah, like
It's really strange. It reeks of America, doesn't it? And
so much, like
and like
just so much.
yeah, and bad money and
Do you do you want to?
corruption and deals and stuff.
The funny thing about it though is I'm actually, if Super League isn't at Malibu, I would like that because I think that, I mean, I was there. It's the most successful race that Bahrain Victoria's had when Tim Ford was manager. It's a shit venue for a race, mate. Like I'm sure it's great for the age
Oh
group
yeah,
mass participation event, but from an actual, like, it's such a shit course. And I think that from that article that we
it's an
both read,
ugly course.
ugly, hideous. It's literally a car park. Uh, and there's nothing around. Like I would have, when I imagine Malibu Beach, I imagine, like, bars and restaurants. It's just,
Mm.
there's nothing. But they're saying that it might be is it Palm Beach instead, or what was the
Long
anyway,
Beach.
Long Beach. And I looked at it on a map. That's south of LA, but I hope it's maybe a bit more exciting than Malibu. But what was interesting is they're saying that's going to be where the race is held for the LA Olympics. So Long Beach will be the triathlon location. So that excites me. I'm thinking if we're going to have an
That's cool.
alternative.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
fascinating. Here's where things get more interesting, right? Is that race is meant to happen in June, which I think is before the Olympics. So I don't know that like, because I'm assuming Super Leagues will happen after the Olympics this year. But this is where things get almost like the PTO bit. So everyone's asking what Super League's plan this year. They've got, they bought the New York Triathlon, they bought the Chicago Triathlon, they've got the Long Beach Triathlon, they've got the Malibu Triathlon. They've got all these American races. Are we going to see them all have a Super League event? I heard there was possibility of like an American conference and a rest of the world conference, and then come together for the grand final. Who knows what's going on? But what do you want to see happen for the Super League series this year? Are you excited about Super League this year? Thoughts around the teams? What things do you think need to change? Super League.
Yeah, I'm always excited about Super League. Super League is an exciting race series, and it always delivers interesting, watchable, consumable races. I mean, agree with you. I think it would be. I think they can. There's a silver lining to this that hopefully that race doesn't have to be in Mallow. It's probably going to cost. It's probably going to cost them a load of money and be really irritating from an administerial perspective. But
Not our problem.
you know, it's not our problem, and we might end up with a better race and a better race location with a more interesting vista, and like you say, on the ground facilities that will help bring crowds to support it because you'll have bars and restaurants and all that manner of shit. Um, I'm intrigued by the development of the teams. I think I like the way it's turned into a sort of a combination of the actual athletes and the managerial side and decisions that are made. I like that drama and the way it plays out. Um, so I'd like to see that continue. I'd get rid of the animals. Don't call them animals. Call them something else. Call them something cool.
I agree.
What are your
I,
takes?
I mean, like you talk it like from experience. Like I was one of the team. The management thing isn't a joke. Like it's
No, no, I
taken.
know that. Yeah.
No, no, more for I guess the people like listening is it's serious. Like when we did the pontoon draw or the start draw, it was like properly heated, right? Like there was this whole thing where I think the races before it was the teams all had to go together, and then after the race in Toulouse, they said we don't want to do this. You need to be able to pick where the athletes go. So when I rocked up to the pontoon draw with Chris in Malibu, that was what they'd agreed on, and then Tim Don and I think Michelle Dillon from the other, they were like, no, no, we want to go back to the idea of, and they had to have this like full on vote there to say which one, and they got up and said we're doing the individual, and doing the individual race was like genuinely like working out where people went individually was fucking awesome, mate. It was such a, like, literally me and Chris are like huddled, and he's like, hey, who are we gonna do? And we were like, okay, and then we're going, where's the pontoon and who's this? And okay, who's here? Who's hip can that? It was fantastic. And then race
Yes,
day.
it's not performative, is it? The
No.
management side, and that's what I like about it. It
Yeah, yeah.
really adds a different area of a different dynamic to the whole thing, and I love it.
I remember when I
It's like
when
Formula One.
yeah, fuck man. I remember when the men in the men's race, we learnt the short shoot, and they come that you don't see it on the broadcast, but the crew comes straight up to you and they're like, who are you giving the short shoot to? And I was like, when do I need to tell you? They're like, by the end of this race. I'm like, fuck off then. Let me, I actually need to think about it. It's not just I'll give it to, like, and then I'm like messaging Chris going, mate, I'm thinking about, I want to give it to Henry. I think Hayden's got yeah, there's this whole thing. I felt so much pressure that race. Like it really was. I think and like obviously it's for the broadcast, but it's like legitimate. I think that's
The only negative was
Hey,
having you on camera brought the quality of the broadcast down.
yeah, I thought
Other
that.
other than that, it was really interesting.
And the course obviously was a bit shit, but
Yeah.
I really like the team aspect. I think, as I've said a lot, I think they need to redefine it. I think that they need to, it's either an individual series or a team series with some individual prems, bike, swim, run. I think they need to also introduce some sort of rule around maybe if you get the swim points, but you're disqualified, you earn less points, like some sort of multi-tier system to allow. Because I mean, Hayden made the point to me, like, if you include the athletes who actually finish the races, I would have won the bike and the run points because the people who are winning them are like getting eliminated. I don't think he said bike, actually. I think he said run, which I think is a valid point. Like
Mm.
we saw that young American kid who would literally come run the fastest lap and then walk, which I don't hate, but also like it, so I still think there's a lot of room for refinement around it. Same thing, fuck off the animals. Let's get some clarity.
Fuck off the animals. What some good names?
Yeah. What would
Good
you call them?
names.
What would you call them?
There's cool things in the world. Call them the cool things. I mean, not that animals aren't cool. Don't get me wrong. Animal lovers, I love animals,
What's
but
your
it just doesn't.
What's your the character base? Because for our listeners who aren't aware of this, there's a fantasy series in which there's a character named after James Bale. What's your
Yes,
character's name?
Sir James Ballos.
Well, there we go. We should have the Balloses. That can be one of the that
The
can be one of the two.
Balloses, yeah,
The
yeah.
Balloses.
The
What?
Fordos,
Well, I don't know about the photos because people think of the cars. Uh,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. I said I think Super League kind of what I really genuinely want to see Super League do this year is come out and just go, we ain't playing nice anymore. None of this skirting around World Triathlon, none of us fucking
Mm.
taking into account your fuck that. Athletes, we're going to pay you a shit ton of money. Pick. You've got the Olympics in July, whenever it is. After that, come on. If you want to do our thing, do our thing. So that's what I'd really like to see them do and then fucking commit to it. So I'm excited for
Yeah,
Super
I
League.
mean, it's sort of about like the because you want to bring in some sponsorship, don't you? So you want to have like the Super League Lightning Bolts sponsored by something, brought to you by something.
The
Weather, maybe weather conditions like
The Super League Bulls,
the
sponsored by Red Bull.
the
That's an
yeah, the
animal.
mild drizzle brought to you by Devon.
The only other thing, just because we're getting close to wrapping this up, is I saw this happen yesterday that World Triathlon have announced that the 2025 Grand Final will be happening in Wollongong, which is about an hour south of Sydney. It is a place that I love racing. It is a fantastic location for triathlon, and I thought that was fantastic. So I just also wanted to mention that because I think it's great to see a WTCS Grand Final coming back down under. Australia hasn't had any World Triathlon events for a while since Mooloolaba lost its World Cup. So excellent.
Will you go and race?
Probably not. I'll still go there though. I don't.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
fair
don't know.
enough.
I don't know. My yeah. Anyway, I
Before we move on from the Super League thing completely, will the listenership be able to see you at any races this year in a managerial capacity?
I can neither confirm nor deny if that's the case. I'm not
Oh,
sure
fair
to be
enough.
honest, but I'm definitely having chats. I don't know what's happening at the moment, but I'd love it. Like I'd love the opportunity to do it again. I think that if I did it again, I'd actually like I want to see there's I mean, I don't know how much happens with the draft and stuff, but I really want to I would have a lot of thoughts about how you'd approach filling your team basically, because I think what you need with this sort of series is you need like one GC athlete rather than a couple, and then you build the rest of the team around the
Yeah.
points. So
And it'd be
that's
much more interesting being there at ground level
mm,
than getting drafted in midway through series. Because, like you say, you can have influence over that.
exactly. So that'd be something that I'd like to see. But yeah, that's it, mate. I think we've done pretty well. First week back, we're gonna get back to we'll probably try and get a guest on next week, and then we're gonna get obviously the racing will start to pick up and we'll have more things to talk about. But Jimbo, if people want to find out more, head to Patreon, all that sort of
Ah,
good stuff.
shit.
Where is it that they need to go? I'm going to keep talking until you get the chance to bring it up because I know that you're so well prepared that it'll only take a couple of minutes. Let me know when you're
Yeah,
ready
it's
to start
loading.
doing your spiel. Okay, I stopped. I
It's
literally
load.
just
It's not
if
loading. Oh, it is
if
loading.
oh, is it happening? I can do. I
Yeah,
mean,
yes. Thanks for listening to Talking Triathlon. If you want to support the show and jump on at patreon.com/Talking Triathlon. If you want to follow Tim, he's at tford14 on Instagram and I'm at bale.j5 on Instagram. Find us across all social networks at Talking Triathlon on Instagram and at Talk Triathlon on Twitter. If you join up to the Patreon group, you'll get access to the monthly bonus episode and the social group. And that social group is awesome. And the WhatsApp group is my favorite thing. we put anybody who signs up gets access to the WhatsApp group, and we're in there for chats and general triathlon enthusiasm. And as you said earlier, this year we're going to look for some sort of live watch alongs for different races, which would be awesome. We can all sit, have a virtual beer as we watch a race and chat shit.
The Olympics in particular, that'll be cool.
The
And again,
Olympics in particular. And we'll
I'm
both be on the ground at the Olympics, so we'll be able to put little videos in there and things that we see and pictures and stuff.
I'm actually expecting to be at a few races this year, to be honest. Like looking at my travel schedule for this year, it's looking pretty chaotic, actually. But
Mm.
yeah, I should be at a few events, which will be cool. Jimbo, it's good to be back, mate. I'm looking forward to getting stuck in this year. I know that Joe wants to come back on, so we'll get Joe in the next few weeks. There's plenty of people we want to talk to. Maybe this year's the year we'll get Lionel Sanders on. I doubt it. Uh, Lionel's been frustrating me a bit more than normal this year with this fucking back and forth. It's like a fish flopping around on dry land. I'd love to have a chat with him about it because I do. I love him
Yeah.
so much. But we'll see what
And
happens.
if we get that interview, mate, it'll be a deep and long one.
Exactly. So, guys, if you're watching on YouTube or whatever, comments below, best place to interact with us. It's where we sort of, although somebody put a real fucked comment the other day about how boring Taylor Spivey's interview was. I was like, dude, fuck off. Like, just
Yeah.
because you have an opinion, shut the fuck up. Leave her alone.
There was
I
a,
think
there was another comment a few while ago as well that I saw that made me go, "Meh." And I was like,
or where they said we talking
talking
shit about, yeah, talking
yeah,
we
that
should.
was it. Yeah.
And my response was, oh, it's a good name. Yeah, fuck
Yeah.
off. Fucking pull your fucking head in. Come and say it to me in person, see what happens. Yeah,
Yeah.
pleasure as always. Talk to you next week.
Cheerio.